Welcome to From the Honeycomb podcast. I am your host, Katerina. Join me as we explore stories of fearless female entrepreneurs and inspiring women in architecture, construction, engineering, and beyond. Each episode is a captivating blend of topics that resonate with the soul. Whether you're here to learn more about entrepreneurship, architecture, holistic living, or just need a little extra inspiration, you've come to the right place. So sit back, relax, and let the buzz of positive energy spark your curiosity. Today, I am joined by Avideh, architect and the founder of Zero Houz, who is shaping the future of sustainable living. Avideh is a passionate leader in high-performance design, delivering cutting-edge, energy-efficient buildings and advocating for meaningful policy change at both the municipal and state levels. Drawing from her real-world experience, she's now pursuing her next big vision, creating zero-emission, zero-toxin homes at scale, and reimagining how we build healthy, resilient communities. I'm excited to dive into her work, her mission, and the impact that she's making in the built environment. So Avideh, welcome to From the Honeycomb podcast.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes. And so glad to connect with you again. For listeners, so they know, we met at the AWA+D Symposium 2024.
A year or two ago, yes.
It's been a minute. So I'm excited to have you on finally.
Yes, and I remember when we met, I thought you were so amazing. And I knew we were going to cross paths again.
For sure. And I'm just in awe, and I've been following your journey because I think, and we'll get this, I don't want to say this all in the intro, but we'll get into it in the episode. Like, I think you had just bought the house that you were like first working on at that time. So there's just been like so much of your journey that I'm really excited to dive into.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so, as you know, we begin every episode by sharing something that we are grateful for in the present moment. So what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for all the possibilities in front of me right now. Like, honestly, I don't think I've ever been at a point in my life before where I had so many possibilities in so many directions I could go with my work and my passion and my career. And to a point where it's a little overwhelming, but I got to step back and think, oh, wow, that's a great position to be in. That means I can be very conscious with which direction I go in. So I'm very grateful for that.
It's a good problem to have, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something that's really good, but it's overwhelming, especially when there's so many good things coming your way, so many opportunities, and you want to think like, what is the best avenue for you? What makes most sense? What's the most, no pun intended, like sustainable for yourself, for your business, and for the world? So that's something really wonderful to be grateful for.
Yeah, and you get some serious fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Because I can't possibly go all directions. You got to choose. And it's always like, oh, but what if there would have been something else there than down that path? So it's hard to stay focused, but I'm trying.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can resonate with that. Hi, it's me, Katerina. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share with you something that can change the trajectory of your life. If you are ready to start your own architecture firm, but are feeling overwhelmed by where to begin, I understand, because I felt the same way when I first embarked on my entrepreneurial journey. This is why I have created the ebook, The Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm. This comprehensive workbook contains everything I wish I had known before starting my own firm. From building a solid business plan to creating your brand, The Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm offers a step-by-step guide tailored to your timeline, whether you're launching your firm today, next month, or in a few years. Dive into essential topics like financial planning, organization strategies, and how to secure your first client, all in one convenient resource. That's right, you don't have to spend hours researching. I have done that for you so you can focus on building your business. And that's not all. With your purchase, you'll also receive an exclusive meditation for business owners, mindfulness tips, a crystal guide for support, and gratitude exercises to help you stay focused and positive throughout your journey. Turn your dream of having your own firm into a reality with the Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm. Click on the link in the show notes to get your copy today. Now, let's dive into the episode. So, did you always know you wanted to be an architect?
No, I didn't. I had no idea architecture was a career and I could be an architect. That was not a thought at all. Because I was born and raised in Iran, and my family immigrated to the States when I was 13 years old. So coming from an immigrant family, it was very much, okay, I just want to get a stable job and have a paycheck and just, get that stability that immigrant families always want to have. My dad was an engineer. My mom was in the pharmacy industry back in Iran, but she never worked here when she came here. And immigrant parents always want you to be a lawyer, an engineer, a doctor, one of those top three, right?
Yes.
And so I was kind of going down that path of engineering just because my dad was an engineer and I kind of knew what it entailed until I realized that I hate it and I just cannot stand it. And so I always really loved doing art since I was like a toddler and just growing up, I would make these big, beautiful art pieces. And at some point I thought I want to be an artist. Like I was sure I just want to be an artist, but my parents were not very happy about that, right? So engineering it was. And at some point I had to stop and say, okay, I can't do art and I cannot do engineering as a career. I got to find something in between. So I actually just happened to stumble upon a drafting class in my community college that I was at.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, oh, what is this? Let me sign up. And the rest was history. That was my start to architecture. So I had kind of a later start in it. And even then, I wasn't sure that, oh, can I really do this? Because I heard the schooling is really long and it's very competitive to get into a good architecture school. And most people don't even make it out the other end. All those stories that you hear. So even then, I was not very confident at all. And it was a lot of money and a lot of investment. But one of my good friends growing up, her uncle was an architect. So I remember after I took my first drafting class and I was kind of trying to decide, should I go down this path? Should I not? I talked with him and he is the one who encouraged me and said, you know what, just do it. Just go for it. Because you're never going to know. Because at that point, I wasn't sure if I start working though, what if I start working and I don't like it and I've spent all this time? He's the one who said, don't think about that. Just if you like it right now and so far, just go and do it and enjoy it and you'll figure out the rest. And so that's what I did.
Wow. I think that's so true. I think that's great advice and so true in the world of architecture. You kind of just have to go for it because there's so much in the world of architecture you just don't know until you learn. And I mean, even now, I'm over a decade into it and I'm still learning new things. And I'm like, oh, wow, you need an architect for this. And oh my gosh, like there is just so many things. So I think that was a really great piece of advice. And I think it's incredible to hear how many people have done drafting classes. Like I never had it in my high school or anything like that. But it's amazing how just even drafting classes are what gets you kind of your foot in the door. So that's a really great story to share. And so where did you go to architecture school?
So I went to Woodbury University in Burbank in LA. It's a private university. I had kind of an unconventional way of getting there because I actually, like I said, I started my college career in engineering and I was at UC Santa Barbara at that time. And I was studying, out of all things, I don't know why, I was studying computer science.
Oh, geez.
Because I thought somehow I can tie it to my art later, something like that. Anyway, that's when I realized I just can't do this anymore. So I actually dropped out of UC Santa Barbara after my first year. I went back to community college where I discovered the drafting class. So I was there for a year or two, I don't remember. And then I transferred in to Woodbury University as a transfer student. But it's funny now that I think about it, even that wasn't conventional because I was kind of unprepared for architecture school. So I basically had to start at year one. So I had a kind of a long journey there, but I did all 5 years at Woodbury University. At that time, Woodbury also for many years had a San Diego campus. So I was at the San Diego campus for a couple of years and I graduated from there eventually. But I started out in Burbank, went to San Diego, graduated there, and I was living in San Diego for a couple of years after my graduation.
Nice. I didn't realize they had two campuses. I've heard of the San Diego one. So, but even
well, they closed it now.
Okay, they closed it. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, I think something to do with the funding and the enrollment. The San Diego school was very small. It was just architecture only. And my graduating class was like 20 people.
Oh my goodness.
I know all of those 20 people. When you spend 5 years with those same 20 people.
That's a different kind of bond. That's incredible. Yeah, because I was going to say in my school, Illinois Tech in Chicago, we had 100+ plus or minus throughout the 5 years. Obviously, some dropped, then some transferred, some dropped, some transferred. It kind of every year went up and down. But 20 is a cozy group. I think that's something that is really valuable, though, because you do get kind of that closeness as well. And I think it's such an interesting profession in ways of you getting close with people, because so many people discover different things that they love about architecture.
Yeah, exactly. Although I have to admit, by the end of those 5 years, we didn't want to have anything to do with each other for some time.
Yeah, true. I can see
it's just
that.
kind of like you're in a vortex in architecture school that it's just like just sucks you in.
Yeah, that's true. I could see that
But
as
those
well.
are bonds that, I mean, I'm still in touch with many of those, my classmates that I graduated with. And it was a very unique experience for sure, especially in San Diego, where there was no big architecture school. It was really just these smaller private schools. And the reason I ended up at Woodbury is, of course I applied to Cal Poly Pomona and all the Cal Polys as well, but unfortunately I didn't get in. And so for me at that time, I was just so excited to start. I just wanted to start. So I went to Woodbury, and that was my journey.
Nice. And so now, and I know we'll get to where you are today with your sustainability and the zero emissions. Were you taught any of that in Woodbury at all? Was sustainability a topic? Not at all. Okay.
No.
Wow.
We had one class called environmental studies or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was the one class where we were taught how to do calculate the sun angles on pencil and paper at that time. And, look at that's the first time I heard of passive building strategies, night cooling, things like that. I heard about it, and it was kind of very theoretical, because at that time there was a very good connection between that class and our studio classes, for example. So it wasn't like what you learn in that class, you apply it to your next studio project.
I see.
So it was just kind of this one-off thing that I thought, oh, interesting. It did open the window for me to think, oh, maybe I want to explore this a little bit more. But that was pretty much it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm even thinking about my architecture school. Same thing. Like I heard about passive housing, and that's about it. And then the sun angles, and that's it. And, where you put the windows, what's north, what's south, where does the sun set, like overhangs, and that's about it. So when did you discover kind of this interest in sustainability?
So it's funny, because I think I always had the interest. I just didn't know that it was called sustainability.
Okay.
For one of my projects that I was the most proud of, I think it was my 4th year at Woodbury, I actually proposed a whole water treatment plant as a community garden space. And it was very involved. I was looking at environmental pollution and how to weave that into architecture. I was looking at how to clean air through architecture, through buildings. Then I ended up designing what I didn't know was a whole gray water treatment plant that was using natural materials to filter the water. And at that time, I remember it was so funny. My student instructors would tell me, but Avideh, you need to design a building. There needs to be a building. You can't just design these systems. You got to design the building. And so it was, the school of thought in architecture schools at that time was very much the iconic building and just focus on that one architecture, and that's it. Whereas I was always thinking systematically, what more can I do? I can design so much more than just an iconic building. And I was never interested in that. So for me, it came down to, wow, can I actually use this as an opportunity to provide cleaner water and cleaner air for everyone? And I always believed everybody deserved good housing to be in. And so those are my fundamental beliefs always. And so when I went out into the world to start my career working in an office, I hadn't quite put all of this together yet. So I was just, your typical drafter, entry level, doing production drawings. And it took me about maybe 2-3 years until I realized it clicked for me at some point. Wait a second, this is sustainability. What I have been doing it's just that I didn't realize that's what I was doing. So that's the point at which I made a transition in my career.
And so when did you make the transition into starting your own company?
So this was just recently, literally the past couple of months. Okay. It's very new. So going back to when I transitioned into sustainability and really focusing more on sustainable design as an architect, I pursued the licensure path. I got licensed. I did all the things. I was a job captain. I was a project architect. I was a project manager and mostly working on big commercial buildings. Because I always loved, the other thing I really always love is complexity, just complex projects and complex buildings. I just loved it. And so that I spent 14 years doing that and really crafting those skills. And then I realized after 10 of those 14 years spending on sustainable design and trying to convince clients to do sustainable architecture and maybe do passive ventilation or choose better, healthier materials, I realized that the only way to get this done is I just do it myself. That's the most efficient way. And I never actually wanted to start my practice all these 14 years. That was not it was a thought, but I always knew that I did not want to have my own practice, like as an architectural service, offering architectural services. Because I knew what the problem was there for me personally, for my values is, again, I'm going to be up with clients who I'm trying to convince. And sometimes you get lucky and you get a really wonderful client, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I've also watched all these architects spend their entire careers waiting for that one unicorn client, and that, like, this is going to be the big one. This is going to be the project where I get to finally do what I want to do. And I was just like, there's got to be a better way. So yeah, that's where I am at in that journey now.
I think that's interesting how you said about finding that perfect client and clients not being all about sustainability. I have a client who is very focused on sustainability. Unfortunately, that isn't something that's in my wheelhouse. We did get a consultant brought on, especially for like landscaping, hardscaping. But those clients who want to do the sustainability, it is so far and few in between. And I think even coming from the state of California, where we have the Title 24, yes, of all the states, I think we're most, I guess you could say, sustainably minded, but not really in a way, because Title 24 is just still the bare minimum. But finding that client is so difficult. And then also if they have the budget, because that's something I'm noticing too, is there are a lot of sustainable approaches you can do, but they might not always be within the budget. So what's your experience with that?
And especially if you're dealing with residential clients. So I had a very, very brief, I would call, stint in residential architecture at the very beginning of my career, because I graduated in the recession. That's a whole other story. Could not find a job for the life of me. But eventually started working with a structural engineer who was local in the area. He had his own company, as in, like, he was his own solo practice, basically, right? His job was mainly to repair structural damage in homes, especially hillside homes in like Orange County area. And so clients would contact him, hey, my home is sliding off the hill. Can you fix it? And he would go in there, do structural repairs. But a lot of times he realized when he's doing structural repairs, clients are asking him, well, while we're doing this, can we also expand the home or, redesign the living room, or we want to add a bedroom? And he realized he needs some architectural designer to work with him. So I was that architectural designer. For maybe a year or two, I worked with him. And it was very interesting dealing with residential clients. And I will say it honestly, their mismatch of expectations with what was possible and doable, even from a budget perspective or from a code perspective, all of those, it was a struggle. But most of all, I felt I was becoming a therapist, like a couples therapist.
Yes, that is what you become. When you're in residential architecture, I will say you are a couples therapist. And family dynamics, I mean, I've been part of some conversations and I know things about my clients that probably most of their family doesn't know. It's very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of, at that point, I was like, this is not what I signed up for. Yeah. I don't want to do this. Yeah. It's just not I know some people enjoy it and they like working at that scale. But for me, it was no, I'd rather work with a client who knows what they want and I get to do the architecture that I want to focus on. So that's why I switched to larger scale and more corporate institutional clients. Like I loved institutional clients for that reason. Budget is set. They know what they want. Go.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, I forget what your question was and how I got here.
I don't even remember the question anyway. I thought that was so funny. I thought this was a great tangent because I think that's something too that just to finish this off is I think a lot of clients don't understand the difference between just commercial residential. Not even we don't have to get to like agricultural or industrial things like that or institutional, but like there is a huge difference when it comes to commercial work and residential work and the relationship the architect has with the client, whether the client is a corporation, a board, or a homeowner. It is just and you don't learn any of this in architecture school. You don't learn how to deal with clients, unfortunately, because it's
Yeah.
each case is so specific. So I think I really resonate with you on that and just like dealing with clients. I'm much more comfortable in the residential because I've had more experience in it. Commercial, it's just the all the code requirements to me are just like, oh my gosh. So that just
Yeah.
becomes too much for me on that end.
There's a trade-off for sure. Yeah.
Yes. But let's see if we can remember the question I think I asked.
Speaking
Yeah.
of stuff you're not taught in school, we had one course about construction.
Oh, yeah.
You have one course on project management. I don't even really remember anything from that.
Nothing. In one ear, out the other. I still have my notebooks from it because I was like, oh, this will help me for my exams. Never opened them. So, I mean, there's that difference between, and I've talked about this with other guests on the podcast, that bridge from going from architecture school, the educational world, to the real world. That bridge is the longest, biggest bridge you'll ever have to cross because it is so different and it all depends on what you end up studying and then what you end up doing out in the real world. And most of the time, what you studied isn't applied to what you're doing because you decide to do something niche or you decide to do something that wasn't a program offered or it was just one lecture one day in one of your classes and that's what you really love and then you make that your career. So it's a huge umbrella, architecture, for sure.
It is. Yeah, I think the reason I kind of backtracked in time is to say that I had a very brief stint in residential. The rest of my career I spent in commercial. And I knew it was in the back of my mind all along. And I got licensed and everything that, well, I could step out on my own at any time and just have my own firm. So that thought did cross my mind many times, but it was always, oh no, I know what that's like because of my brief stint. Because if I go out on my own, those are the projects I have to do. And I don't know if I'm made for that. I don't know if that's the best fit for me personally. And so I always knew, okay, I'm not starting my own firm, but here I am.
Yes, here you are. And I think it's always interesting. A lot of people say that they didn't think they'd ever start their own firm, but then, was there a specific moment, day that happened? Something that you were like, okay, I guess I'm just going to do it?
I'm still kind of in this weird space where I'm like, am I really doing this?
Welcome to entrepreneurship. I think that's
that moment has come.
Yeah, it's going to be every day. You're going to be like, why did I do this again? That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the whole thing, I guess let's talk about the house because the way that this whole thing got kickstarted is because I bought a house.
Yes.
During the pandemic sometime, which I was going to live in. And of course, architect, you're going to go find a house that needs some work that you can make it your own. Every architect's dream.
Yeah.
So I did exactly that. I bought a 100-year-old home that I could afford, which is only 600 square feet in Long Beach. And it was very outdated and in need of a lot of work, but I liked that. I liked that it was kind of in original condition. It had a couple of small additions to it, wonky additions, but mostly was in original shape. And so I thought, okay, this has good bones. I can do something with this. And when I visited the home with my realtor that first day, I remember thinking, I'm going to make this a net zero energy, zero emissions home because I've spent so many years telling my clients they should do this. I need to walk the talk and I want to do it on my own home and actually show that it can be done and how to do it. And that was my vision immediately for that home. And I remember I shared that with the realtor who was also selling the home. And she was also excited, which I didn't expect. She was also, you got to do this. This is so cool. It's such a great idea. It's a good vision. You got to do it. And same thing with my realtor. So of course we sealed the deal. And then I was left with this house that I had to figure out what to do with. But eventually, through life's ups and downs, and there's a lot that happened in my personal life in the couple of years after I bought the house. But through all those ups and downs, I managed to renovate the home, make it net zero energy, all electric, and a healthy home in terms of choosing healthier finishes, like non-toxic, non-PVC finishes, which I really believe in. And so using that as a pilot, essentially, to showcase what can be done. And that house, I finished that house in July of 24.
Okay.
And I think I met you probably shortly after that, or maybe at around that time. I'm not sure.
It would have been around that time. I think it was June 2024 is usually when we have our symposium. So then it must have been right when you were just finishing up. Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of a long journey. It took me a couple of years, but that was mostly because of my personal life and things going on. And I learned some very important lessons along the way. It is a big learning curve when you go from commercial to residential, because the whole thing operates differently. And so that was done. And I just recently got a design award for that house, which
that's right.
was beyond my wildest dream that I would get a design award, because I was never the design architect. I was never the designer in these firms that's just doing conceptual design and fancy design. I was more of a technical person always. And I was so focused on sustainability, right?
Right.
So with the house taking off, that house is an Airbnb now and it's doing really well.
Amazing.
The house taking off, and I really enjoyed the process. I thought, I want to do more of this, because I just loved doing the whole thing myself. And what if I could just do this? So that's how my idea for my business started, which is, I called the house Zero Houz, and that's the name of my company now, Zero Houz. And I initially established that company to really do property management for my house.
Nice.
That's all it was.
Smart. That's how you do it. That's how business people do it.
But eventually the brand kind of got a life of its own. And I have spoken about Zero Houz at different conferences, mostly sustainability conferences, with other people who want to nerd out on this stuff with me. But I was, the house was on the news also. So there was some reach into public media and the general public as well. And I thought, wow, this is a really good tool also to educate the general public and others who are maybe not as aware and as advanced in all of this as I am. So the idea is to be a housing development company, essentially, to own, develop, and operate my own housing within this company, which is kind of a wild turn for me.
Still incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's incredible yet, but it is a vision. It is a very big shift for me in how I think and how I work. And I think a lot of people who are finding out about my new vision and passion with development are kind of surprised that, oh, you were so into sustainability and now you're like all into development, and developers are bad. And I've also had jobs where I worked with developers in housing, in multifamily housing, and I didn't particularly like working with developers. So I agree from an architect's perspective, but hey, what if the architect was a developer?
Yeah, there you go.
Then we can actually make some great things happen. And this is speaking of things you're not taught in architecture school.
Yeah.
Another thing.
To be a developer. I don't know where developers go to school, like business school or something. I don't know.
Right? Yeah. I even started looking into, wait, do I need to get a certificate or some education in this? What am I doing with this?
Yeah.
And I looked into, there is real estate programs that UCLA has one, UC Berkeley has one. It's a master's in real estate development. In fact, Woodbury had one when I was there with a really well-known architect developer, Jonathan Siegel, who was leading that program. And at that time, I kind of knew about it. It was kind of in the periphery. I was in the undergrad program anyway. I was not in that program, but I knew about it. I just didn't think much about it, or didn't think it's something I could do. Or now I'm circling back to all of that and thinking, oh my God, they were doing this years ago. And that would have been, so that's actually a really good program for anyone who's interested. That program doesn't exist anymore because Woodbury San Diego doesn't exist anymore. But there's other MRED programs out there that are specifically for this. But for me, at this point, I am 14, almost 15 years into my career, and I kind of know what I'm doing. So for me, I'm just gonna go for it and roll the dice and take a chance on myself, basically.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's what you kind of have to do. And especially even as a woman in this industry, is just sometimes you have to just take a chance on yourself. And you found something that you're passionate about and you wanted to do this. And so you just have to carve your own path. And so I think that's incredible. I think you're really inspiring. And it's just been so incredible to see your journey, even just this last year and a half that I've been following you. And since we met, I mean, it's really incredible. And I'm excited to see what happens with you in the future and like how you're going to build and grow now. And so, speaking of growth and building your company, I want to talk a little bit about your company as well, because yes, first and foremost, I think you're an architect, but you're also a business owner. And so, oftentimes when I have guests on the podcast who are something that's their passion, and then they turn their passion into a business, now they're wearing two hats. And sometimes the business hat doesn't allow the creative hat to do things or vice versa. And so, how has it been for you continuing to be passionate about architecture, about sustainability, now becoming even a developer, but also having that business hat on, something you also didn't learn in architecture school on how to run a business, like, right? More things. So this is going to be the name of the episode. What you didn't learn in architecture school at this point.
Everything I did not learn in architecture school.
Exactly.
Because I think I have set out to do everything I did not learn in architecture school. It's like, oh, I didn't learn that. Let me do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very true because, well, okay, my pipe dream is I don't have to make a trade-off. If I'm the architect and the developer, then the two are going to be the same. And I can do exactly what needs to be done. And the business side and the architecture side will just be like this, side by side. There won't be a trade-off. That's my ideal scenario.
Right.
In redoing my house, renovating my house, which I had to got, but I tell people it's a net zero energy, all electric, this, that. Their first response, if they're a little bit savvy about, development and remodeling and how much it costs, their first question is, well, that must have cost you a lot more than a normal remodel. You must have invested so much more into it. And I love that my answer can be, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
It was actually the same cost as a normal remodel. And I have the cost sheet because I very consciously tracked every single cost item on that house just to be able to see at the end of the day, okay, how much more did I invest to make it green? And the answer is it was even. It was the same cost. Now I did get, because I got a bunch of IRA rebates and green building rebates. Okay. If I hadn't gotten those rebates, it would have been a 10% cost increase.
Wow.
10% in the scheme of things.
That's not
Everybody
bad.
thinks it must have been 30%, 50%, some crazy number like that. It's not. And I think that's kind of what I'm out to prove, that those two things can be more aligned than we think. It's just you got to make some very conscious, smart decisions and trade-offs at the beginning and know where you're headed. If you know that, then it can be a very small cost add. But if you don't know that and you're just kind of adding things on thinking it's green, it's all going to add to the cost, right? So that's my ideal scenario, is to show that green homes and healthy homes can be cost neutral at the same cost as you would build a normal home. But there are cases like, for example, the cost of the solar panels on the home, where I'm not sure if I would install solar panels on the next home. And it sounds even shocking to me to say that.
Interesting.
I feel like I'm going to get killed for saying this right now. But you know why? Actually, because I made the house so efficient that putting solar panels on there didn't justify the cost. Solar panels actually make more sense if your house is not efficient.
Interesting.
Because when your house is inefficient, you're using so much energy, then it makes sense to dish out the money for the solar panels to offset that cost. But if your house is so efficient that you're barely using any energy, it doesn't make sense to spend more money on solar panels.
Interesting.
It won't be net zero energy, because the only way for it to be net zero energy is to have on-site solar. And I wanted this house to be net zero energy. Okay, so I did it. But if I were to look at it as a purely financial decision, I wouldn't do it. The next home, I would make it all electric. I would set it up so it can take solar panels. And first run it for a year and see how much energy is it actually using, and then decide if it's worth it or not. But I did all of this together at the same time, so I didn't have all that data to work with. And so those are some of the lessons learned, where practically and speaking in terms of financial terms, my decision will be different next time around. And it's not because I'm being less sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I'm capturing the efficiency somewhere else in the actual design, in the actual air sealing of a 100-year-old home. And I can make that trade-off.
That is really interesting because even as you were saying this, I was thinking about, well, what about the code requirements? So, like in the state of California, we have to be solar ready now. And so, how do you anticipate like the future code cycle changes? Because we're heading into one right now. What if you do have to put in solar eventually? And like, how do you deal with the code cycle or the code requirements in that sense?
Yeah, and I have an unpopular opinion on this. I think the requirements for solar panels is kind of ridiculous on homes. To require every home to have it without considering how efficient is it, how much energy is it actually using. At the end of the day, solar panels still have embodied carbon in them. They're still taking energy to produce and to install. So there is some impact there. They're great when used in the right situation, but to have a code just blankly require it is kind of is ignorant to me at best. So unfortunately, yeah, there may be scenarios where you have to have solar panels, even though you've made the house so efficient. And I don't know, that's just, to me, that's just waste.
I agree.
At the end of the day.
I agree. I think budget wise too, I have a detached ADU, brand new construction. Because it's considered new construction, we had to have solar panels. I think I designed like a 500 square foot, no, not even. I think it was like 400 square foot little ADU. And I'm like, why do we need, and our roof barely fits, I think like 4 panels because of the way of just like, and then you got the exhaust and you got all this and all. I'm like, so for this little, I mean, it's going to blow us out of the budget just because you want us to put solar panels on it because solar panels are expensive. So I think I agree with you on a lot of it. And it is frustrating with the code and the code requirements, and especially how more stringent it is getting in California. And since we are coming up with a code cycle, which I don't know all the specificities coming in, but I know some stuff residentially and a little bit commercial, but I do know really they're pushing the energy efficiency. I wouldn't in quote unquote, because the government energy efficiency isn't exactly what I think you or I would say as architects is energy efficient.
Yeah, well, they're pushing to incentivize all electric homes, which I am all for. That I agree with for many reasons, but also one of my main reasons is for safety, because I don't feel safe having gas inside a home, especially if it's like for my home, I decided at some point it's going to be an Airbnb. I wasn't going to live in it. And the thought of having something that could just blow up the house when I'm not there, I was like, yeah. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make the house all electric, not simply because of the sustainability impact, but because I believe it is also safer. There's no risk of carbon monoxide, gas poisoning. There is no risk of somebody leaving the stove on or something exploding, something catching on fire. So I do believe it's also much safer. And it's interesting because I have an induction cooktop and all of that in the Airbnb. And it's been so interesting to have people stay there, and these guests message me every once in a while. Oh, wow, I didn't even know I could have a kitchen like this. This is so cool. Or like, I want the same stove that you have, or things like that. And so that's when I realized, oh, this is actually making an impact, because you don't believe something until you get to experience it and until you get to live it. A lived experience always trumps any other information or data or IPCC report or climate change, like all of that. It just feels remote and theoretical, But if you live it and it's simply just about a better way of living, then it's just kind of a no-brainer. Then it makes sense. So why not do it?
Oh my gosh. What a great point to have, or like mindset to have, especially about the experience. And I think you are definitely, a lot of change comes from like the small day to day, and you don't have to make a huge change. Like you can't expect a huge change overnight, but in the day-to-day, the people who are experiencing staying in your Airbnb, the people that you're working with, the work that you are doing, the team that you are building, the conferences you're speaking at, all of this is like the one step in the right direction. So I applaud you for your work, for everything that you've been doing. This conversation has been incredible. I have really, really enjoyed connecting with you. I can't believe it took this long, but here we are. And I'm so looking forward to connecting with you and just staying, informed about where you're going, what your company's doing. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to come on From the Honeycomb podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for having me. My next step is I'm going to be moving towards raising some private capital actually for my next projects. And so I'm working on putting together a mailing list of folks who are interested in seeing what I have in the works next. If they're looking for opportunities to invest their money and get some good returns, I am doing all the math on that on the back end because whatever I do, I want to make sure that it's going to be profitable. It has to be. So that's the wearing the architect and the developer hat thing just coming to the forefront. So I'm putting together a list of anyone who's interested in being in the loop on that, on those opportunities. And I'm excited to see what comes up next in my way.
Perfect. And I'll put a link in the show notes for anybody who wants to join your mailing list. And where can listeners find you?
So the website is zerohouz.com, and that's spelled Zerohouz, because I have to be fancy like that. I also have an Instagram. It's also called Zero Houz on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm not super active on Facebook, but Instagram, I do post quite a bit. So follow me there if you want to be in the know as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And I know so many listeners are going to resonate with this, and I can't wait to hopefully have you back on in the future to give us an update on how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of From the Honeycomb podcast. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to rate, review, and share it with your friends. To stay connected, follow me on Instagram at From the Honeycomb podcast, and you can support the podcast through the Patreon link in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to my monthly newsletter where I share exclusive behind-the-scene content and tips on running a mindful and successful architecture business. Thank you again for listening, and stay curious.